know, the phrase of the year is you're on mute. Unmute yourself. So sorry about that. It is such a pleasure. I am delighted to be with y'all this evening. I can't wait to answer all your questions about how to be a really strong applicant. And I do have some slides to get us started. I'm enjoying, honestly, I'm enjoying some of the tiles and the lovely pictures that you have up. If you're in a place where you can undo your tile, it's a lot more fun to talk to your, I wouldn't say that, but I like talking to your human face too. So if you're in a position where you can show your video, that would be awesome. But I know Lana's going to help me watch the chat for questions. Thank you, Kayla. Hi, how are you? Hi, Whitney. Thank you for doing that. Let's get going. I've got some slides to show you, and I always like to get my gallery view back so that I can see you all. And the first thing you see over here is a plug, and it is a plug. I'm Judianne Kellaway, Long School of Medicine, San Antonio, Texas. We have a big outreach effort, and so we do monthly web chats. We have a Facebook group. The students are on there answering questions and things, and you've got access to getting your questions answered. So if you'll go, this is just a club pre-med plug. We also have a YouTube channel that shows you some of the more recent videos that we've put on. So come join us in Club Pre-Med discussions. We do monthly web chats. So this is part of a super series. I could talk to y'all for hours about things, but this one is focused on trying to make you the best applicant that you can be. But first, I love to have a medical minute. And this is Mr. Myers, and I am, Lana, did you tell them I'm an ophthalmologist? I can't remember if that was.
I don't know, I skipped that part.
Okay, that's okay. So I worked hard to get into medical school a long, long time ago and finally made it through, and I am an ophthalmologist. This is Mr. Myers. He came to my clinic. I was there. I had a resident and a medical student with me, and Mr. Myers said, I can't, Dr. K, please help me. I can't open my eyes. And we asked him, we spent a long time, of course, asking him lots of doctor type questions. And we asked him that you will learn how to ask. You will learn all kinds of correct things, like not to leave out, make sure that you get to some of these questions, like how long has it been going on? Is anything else, does it feel weak, or are you in pain? And has it been getting worse? Did it suddenly happen? Was it gradual? All those kinds of things. And we were getting a little bit of good information, but the resident and I, all of a sudden, looked at each other and we saw each other's light bulbs go off. And so both of us said, just a minute, and we left the room and we went to the lunchroom, where we went to the refrigerator and pulled out a bag of, you see it, ice. And we told Mr. Myers to lean back and just relax, and we put a baggie of ice across his face. Interesting, right? Different. I bet you've never seen this in your shadowing experiences. Probably not. We put that across his face and he relaxed for 5 or 10 minutes. And then we took the ice bag off, and look what we saw. Mr. Myers said, oh my gosh, I can open my eyes. This feels so much better. I can see better. What happened here? Do I need to carry ice around with me? And we said, no, sir, you don't need to carry ice around with you. They're going to have treatments for this. There aren't too many things where you can make the diagnosis, we call it pathognomonic, in the room, but this is one. The ice test, we call it in ophthalmology. And Mr. Myers does not have to carry ice around. We're going to give him some medication to handle this and send him to a neurologist. We were very lucky. Mr. Myers only was affected around his eyes. We call that the periorbital area. Vital things like breathing, he wasn't having any trouble breathing. He wasn't having any trouble swallowing. Those could be life-threatening things. But he was having trouble at the neuromuscular junction. You can show me icons too, even if your video is off. Have you heard of the neuromuscular junction? So that is our nerves release chemicals. Those chemicals are picked up at receptors in the muscles, right? And Mr. Myers, and that's what makes the muscle contract, he has myasthenia gravis. And we made that diagnosis with a simple test of ice. In myasthenia, this other diagram on the right shows the acetylcholine coming out of the nerve, but receptors are blocked in myasthenia gravis, so the chemical can't get there. So what the ice did was it slowed, I think I added some animation here, yeah. It slows down the enzymatic process of metabolizing the acetylcholine, so it stays there longer, and it also slows down the receptor blockage, all leading up to more acetylcholine in the space to contract the muscle. So that's, it only lasts for about 10 or 15 minutes, slowing down this process. But now we have medications that will do that, and he's doing fine. So I love to, blocking that. I'm just showing you what's blocked. I'm going to give you some superpowers. I'm going to give you some super tips. You're going to be, I really think you're going to leave here with one or two things that you could do to be a strong applicant to medical school. There is a lot, right? You already know enough on this path. And I'm talking in a pre-med way, but if people are headed towards other paths, nursing, other healthcare, any professional school, right? I'm going to tell you some things that will really help you. And some you've heard before, but you've got a lot of things that you're thinking you should do. Sometimes you're hearing from advisors, or in settings like this, you have to do this, you have to do that, but it's not a checklist. I'm going to say that 5 times. It's not a checklist. Okay, shadowing, boom. Like how many hours do I have to have? Okay, done. Community service, done. Research, check. It's not a checklist, okay? It's a way of leading your life to that goal, towards that goal, that's making you the best pre-doctor, the best pre-medical student, to eventually become the best physician or healthcare professional that you can be. The most successful people take all of this overwhelming stuff and they get organized. I can help you with the organization. Most successful people have discipline to attack that plan. I can't get you up in the morning an hour extra early to study for that physics test tomorrow. I can't. You have to do the discipline. And the other thing that I've added recently in guiding people is to please sit down every once in a while and reflect on what you're doing. It helps when you fill out your application. If you're not a diary person, you don't think, oh my gosh, I don't have time to do a diary. But if you just sit every once in a while, once a month, once every few weeks, after you've done a community service thing, sit down once in a while and go, that felt so good to paint that house for Habitat for Humanity. It felt so good. Why did it feel good? Why do I want to go do it again next week? Give it some reflection now, and that translates into your application. And you know what else it does? You know what somebody's going to ask you in your interview day, on your interview days when you're invited for medical school interviews? Somebody's going to ask you, well, tell me, that looks like such a wonderful activity. You spent a lot of time shadowing. You spent a lot of time in this setting or that setting. Tell me more. And if you haven't given it a lot of thought, maybe you can't speak about it as powerfully as you can if you go ahead and spend some time reflecting now. So those are some vital skills. Those are some superpowers right there. I'm going to get you organized. Been talking to pre-med people for decades, and I love it. You're my favorite thing to do is to help people. I think because I did not have an easy time, applied to medical school several times, took the Mcat, I don't know how many times. It was just not taught, dropped physics twice. So, I feel like I have things to help you. So one is get organized. And a lot of these things, I didn't know how to do. I think that's why I enjoyed talking to you all about these things. So they call me, I have been called the Shoebox Lady. And I don't mind that at all. They can't remember my name, but they say that Shoebox Lady, because I've been talking about it for a long time. When I was saying, I still want you to gather everything that is related to your application goes in one place. It used to be a shoebox or a file drawer or something. Now let's just get modern and put it in a folder on your desktop, and you call it my virtual shoebox or my path to medicine or whatever it is. If you will, like, why is this so important? That application, the TMDSAS, I'm most familiar with Texas, but there's a lot of similarities in that and other application systems. It has nearly 250 questions for you. If you sit down the first time and start looking at the questions when you want to submit it, it's taking you hours and hours and hours. There are some simple questions like, what's your address? But there are some ones where you need to reflect. You need to give an informed, high level, meaningful answer. And if you think about all these things ahead of time, that making that application is going to be so much easier for you. You get to keep track along the way. You won't leave things out. You can find balance. You've heard the term well-rounded. We're all looking for people who are well-rounded, so you can see how well-rounded you are. You get an overview of that, and then you'll be ready. I put May 1st here because that's when the Texas application opens up. So you'll be ready, and you take that, open that folder on your desktop, open up the application, and just start moving things over. So it really helps you about the organization. I have a document that would help you, a Word document. If you have a resume, that's a great place to start. And I know, and please put them in the chat if you have ideas about how you organize your things. A lot of people use Excel. But if you're going to use Excel, I'm going to tell you what the application is going to ask for, so you can add that as a column in your log. Some people do it in a Word document. I have this to share with you. Somehow I can get it to you, Lana, and I can figure that out afterwards. But we're going to spend a lot of time in this part of the shoebox organization, which is your personal biography, because it's a very important part of what admissions committees and admissions officers are looking for. And I'll tell you some hints that are in here. There's a lot of good info. I think I better tell you about good, better, best right now, or else I'll forget. Good, better, best means it's good to log an activity, shadowing in pediatrics. That's excellent. And to tell us a little bit about it, or to say, I helped check patients in, tell a little bit about what you did. Better to go into some details about your responsibilities, anything higher level. So it's good to log it. Great to have the experience, good to log it. Best, the best way. You're going to have 250 characters to tell us about that. I know you're in a pediatrics office, that's in the title. So don't repeat that. Tell me what you learned. I learned so much from Dr. So-and-so about communicating with patients. I learned about how sometimes the system helps us and sometimes we're working against things in the system to try to help our patients. I learned about the language we used that is used in medicine and how to make sure patients understand. So if the best way to answer any of these items that you're experiencing to help you be a good doctor eventually, if you will think about the value or the meaning and what you learned, that's how to answer these questions in your application, okay? Which just puts it at a little bit higher level. In the Texas application, you get more space to pick out 3 experiences if you want to identify some things that are very meaningful to you, so you can get some more space. In the AMCAS application, it gives you a chance to put a check mark or identify those that you've already listed there. In Texas, in the TMDSAS application, we have these categories. So we're going to look for well-roundedness and experience in all those areas, and I want to go into them a little bit further into each category. Honors and awards is divided into academic and non-academic. Here's my advice for this section. Think big. I can't tell you, think completely. think of everything you've done, large and small, okay? If you got a small scholarship, maybe it was small, you didn't, it's not even on your register now. You list everything, okay? So if it's not in that log right now that you're building, put it there, because you can always decide later if it meets, if it rises to the level of adding it to your application. Honor societies, even if you didn't win an award, but you were nominated for an award, put that in there. You have belonged to some undergrad communities, organizations that require you to put in some service hours, require a certain GPA. That's something that you did that not everybody else gets to do. That's competitive in that way. So anything that's competitive, anything that stands out as something you got and everybody else did not get, put in there. If you, the sport, people always, a lot of times put sports awards, writing awards, poetry awards, photography contest awards, those kinds of things in the non-academic section. So think completely, don't leave things out. I can't tell you, and sometimes some of you are going to be undersellers and you're thinking, oh, that's a small thing, and you're humble, right? And so you're thinking, I'm not going to put it in there, but I'm telling you, put everything in there, at least in your shoebox, list everything, and then you can decide. Leadership is big. We are asking the question differently now, because the question used to be, tell us about positions of responsibility that you've had. Well, you know what? Not everybody can be an officer in a club. And once you're out of school, if you're non-traditional, it's kind of hard sometimes to figure out, how are you being a leader? So what do we want to know in this section anyway? Why would we look at you, at your leadership skills? We want to know your leadership abilities. Whether you're in a room with one patient, excuse me, with one patient and their family, leading that small group to some success in health down the way, or maybe you now are a member of a committee in your hospital or your clinic and doing leadership that way. It starts small, and just by being a good role model, what do leaders do? They're good listeners, they're organized, they have time management, they communicate very well. All of those things, we all would agree, are things that we want our doctors to do, right? So that's why we're looking at leadership skills. So you certainly get them in a variety of ways, but even mentoring, tutoring, teaching, coaching people, any position of responsibility, even if it's one-on-one. RATA. So think of yourself right now as a leader, as a person who puts good into the world, even if that's just right now by being a good role model. Okay. Starting a club, supporting an effort. I'll tell you an example. I don't know how our time is, but Lana will she'll mute me when it's time for me to go or something. But let me go ahead and give you an example here. I remember an application from a long time ago where a young lady had gotten a group of friends, got her friends together. Every Saturday, they got together. Somebody brought a loaf of bread. Somebody brought peanut butter. Somebody brought jelly. Can you see where I'm headed? Somebody brought a bag of apples. Somebody brought the Ziplocs, and somebody brought the brown bags. And somebody brought the healthcare information from the free clinic down the street. This was in Houston. They would make sandwiches every Saturday, and then they would drive, a couple of appointed people would go to one of the bridges where our homeless people in Houston used to hang out, and they would distribute these lunches and healthcare information explaining, it's right around the corner here, and these are the kinds of things they could do for you if you have any of these needs. So the couple of women who started that, leadership, service, it was great momentum, putting good into the world that way. So think of something, do a diaper drive, do a drive for the military, get an address where people are serving and send them chapstick and like simple things that they can't get a hold of, you know? So those are just some ideas. For our school, for Long School of Medicine, and someday I'd love to come back and tell you more about Long School of Medicine. But for our school, research, not having research is not a deal breaker for us. The way this happens in the application is these questions are asked. Do you have honors and awards? Do you have healthcare experience? Do you have research? So a no there is not a deal breaker for us, where healthcare and community service might be for some schools. So you'll have to have a section in your shoebox where you make notes about what schools value, what they require, how that's different, so you can keep track. Because if some school is floating to the top of your list, you'll want to know what they're looking for. It certainly deepens your knowledge of medicine. We ask you about publications and presentations and posters. That's taking it a little step above, and absolutely a positive addition. If there's a however here, a big capital however. If you are doing research because you think it's a checkbox that you have to check off the list to have a complete application, and you are doing test tube washing in the lab and you hate it, you have two choices. You have two choices. Find something to love. Find, you know, and if you have responsibility and a commitment, I would say you have to do this choice number one, and find something that you love. Find something to learn about that. But if you can get out of that and then spend that time in something that you are enjoying, that you are finding ready value in, then you need to do that. So those are your two choices. Find the good or change, because it's not a checklist, right? So why we don't put this first in the personal biography section, I don't know. It's definitely the most important. You cannot, and I'll drop a file in the chat for y'all too. That's one way to do some things. It's definitely required that you need to know what's required of a doctor. How does a physician spend their day? And through this venue, through socially distanced shadowers, I think you're learning a lot. I got to see a few, so you're learning those things even virtually, but they're very important. Shadowing, of course. You have to probably somewhere along the line put yourself in a position where you're in a room with a physician who's caring for a patient and their family. So you're watching her or him take care of someone and seeing all the things that are involved. That's another presentation, because sometimes shadowing can seem passive, but if I give you some ideas about creating goals, then you raise the level of that experience. And I'm thinking an average scribing experience is probably a little more meaningful sometimes, I think, than an average shadowing experience, okay, because of the passive nature that can sometimes happen. But I can fix that for you. So scribing, by definition, you're trained to do this job, and you have responsibilities as a part of the healthcare team. When you're good at it and you learn, a good scribe then will start to say, I know what this doctor's going to do. She's going to order this next and this next, and she's thinking it's either this or this. And it's a very very valuable experience. So clinical parts of research, you can read the slide, or it's over there. All of those other things certainly can count. What was I going to say there? I'm going to drop this file in the chat, so because I think it's right here, because I've dropped it in chats 3 times today. There it is. So those are alternative activities in a time of COVID. The pandemic was the birthing place of socially distanced shadowers, right? And people still have a lot of questions about what they can do. The first page on this document is something that we came up with here to share with you, ways to learn about medicine when it's harder than ever to do. The second page are things that we saw actual applicants put in their application as very valuable, meaningful experience. Okay, so so I hope that that helps give y'all some ideas about things. I have a saying. I have a few mottos. One is all good things are good. So if you would ask me later or in the chat, I'm a pharmacy tech, is that good? Shall I put that in my application? I have a CPR certification of one level or another. I'm going to tell you all good things are good, but I'm also going to tell you we have high value things. So the shadowing, scribing, putting yourself in that room with a physician or a virtual room is of high value in this area. The high value area, the high value things under this area, community service, are what I call heart to heart and hand to hand. All good things are good. I just said that, right? So earning money, you know, making money with runs and or helping with blood drives, raising money for breast cancer or myasthenia gravis or MS. Those are all good things. But high value are things I call heart to heart and hand to hand, where you are sacrificing your time to be there with a person who you honor by your presence there, and you dignify by your presence with them. And without you there for that 30 minutes or an hour or two, they would just maybe not have that special thing, you, in their life for a moment. So things like bingo is on here. That means going every Thursday to bingo night at the nursing home or a residential facility, and where people are, you know, sometimes craving guests and visitors and activities and things like that, just listening. Being a caregiver in a home where there are people with needs, and other types of needs is a very valuable thing. And I always put a plug in for Big Brothers, Big Sisters, because people think of this sometimes when you hear about it, you think like it's a big commitment and it's a small sacrifice to do so much. It is 1 hour a month commitment to change a young person's life. They train you how to be a mentor in Big Brothers, Big Sisters. And so you get some training and then you get matched with a little. And that person may not have any clue about college or anything beyond college. They might not have anybody in their family who finished high school and got other education. There might be other risks for that young person in that family, and you provide, I don't even have the right words for it. You provide the proof that, you know, that it can be done. If you can dream it, you can be it. And so I think I always put a plug for them in, and your other activities that you're already doing in mentoring and tutoring sessions, you're already changing people's lives. So those are very valuable too. I love this section. Hopefully I have some time to spend here. When you submit an application and we're reading through it, I know it's an application to medical school. I know I'm probably going to see some healthcare related activities because there's a whole section for that. I know that there's probably going to be some great community service activities, right? And a lot of times research, but that extracurricular, I don't know what I'm going to find here. You could be like, who are you and what are you out there doing? Let's have a conversation about your baking habit, or about your books that you love to read, or the movies, you know, that you love, or that you have a TED Talk habit, right? I don't know what I'm going to find here. You want to stand out, right? So sometimes the things that end up in the extracurricular activities are, what do I want to say? Just sort of not that valuable. Let me just say, not that valuable. So no offense or anything, because sometimes this is a big deal for people. But like it's very common to see I do exercise and I do running. Those are some very common things. Your time that you have spent in college organizations. That's very common here, but usually I've seen them somewhere else in the application. So what else can you do? Don't think of this section as a second thought. Think of this as a superpower, and I'm getting ready to tell you a little superpower hint. And oh yeah, so I changed my slides around. This is good. I like to tell you the stories first because these people found superpowers. Amy didn't call it her superpower. She was the first story I learned to share with you. She didn't call it a personal growth plan. I named it a personal growth plan. Amy, I was interviewing her, not in this office, but anyway, we were having a medical school interview, and she told me she was painfully shy. I mean, painfully shy. I mean, she couldn't stand to talk to people. It made her so nervous. She couldn't stand it. She didn't dislike people. She just disliked speaking to people because she didn't know how she was perceived. It just made her so nervous. What words were going to come out of her mouth? She bumbled around her words and things like that. So you know what she did? She made a plan. She made what I call now a personal growth plan. And she, for a whole semester in school, she decided not to say no. When anybody would ask her, come with me to this event, come with me to this party, she would always previously say no. She made a commitment to herself that she was going to say yes. Then she made a goal to meet 3 strangers and talk to 3 strangers. She realized before she made this plan that what was she gonna do as a doctor? She was gonna open the door all day long, and who was gonna be sitting in that chair? A stranger, and a stranger in a family full of strangers. She realized that a good doctor could not be gripped with fear every time she met a new person. So she did that goal. That when I said in the interview, I said, but Amy, we're having a nice time talking. She said, I have worked very hard on this. So if there are things that my theme here is, there are things that you want to do or need to do, should do, make a plan and attack it. I'm going to tell you a few more stories. So the committee, they heard this story and they were like, wow, you know, she saw a need, that she saw something in herself that she needed to improve, and she did it. So we saw self-awareness, capacity for improvement, resilience, and social skills. Part of this personal growth plan, part of your experiences under one category or another is going to be reach out and learn about the world and learn about others in the world so that we know each other better. And when we know each other better, we understand each other better and we love each other better. Daniel is a white young man who was loving his major in Latin studies. Loved it, loved the language, loved the literature, was reading, you know, books by, what's that guy's name? Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and he was loving it. You know what he did? He made a plan. He did things differently. Instead of going to his church on Sunday, that was his comfort zone, that was what he knew, he stepped out of that comfort zone to go learn about others, and he went to the Hispanic church on Sundays. Okay, he reached out of his world to go experience, you know, to be with the people he was learning about and loving. Ahmad is a Muslim young man who, and these are real stories, and these are things that are in people's applications. Muslim young man who had a lot of community service activities and healthcare activities, fairs at the mosque, and community service and teaching and things through the mosque, right? One of his community service experiences really impressed us because he reached out from what he knew. He reached out from his world to learn about others. So he spent every week, he would go to the Christian nursing home, happened to be a Christian-based nursing home, and he read the Bible to the residents there. Not his book, right? So what honor did he do those people to, you know, to share time in their world for something that was important to them, not him? That was giving. That was giving of himself. So those are the main stories. John was scared to do gymnastics. His roommate talked him into it, but he was scared of it. He was scared to death. but he did it and conquered it. So he reached out of his comfort zone. Sarah and Trong quit gaming and social media because they realized that that was not a great way to be. They were spending too much time there. So that was impressive. Self-control, social skills, and Banahini, I love this one too. Banahini, the genie, I'm there when you need me. That was Banahini's motto when he ran for president of the Chinese Club, the Chinese Students Organization. Banahini, by the way, is African American. So he reached out, he was learning Mandarin. I'm like, Mandarin, oh my God, like, I don't know that there's a harder language than Mandarin to learn. He said, yes, I wanted to do something different. But he got into that, got into the study of the culture, etc., and eventually was the president of the Chinese Students Club as an African American. Again, getting out of his world to go learn about others. So just some things for you to think about. Make a personal growth plan. I finally made one, and I did something fun that I've always wanted to pick up again, and that's horseback riding. So I've been doing that, and I'm reading more regularly because I miss it. So think of something that you need to do, you need to improve on, or that you want to do, you know, and get one of those free apps. I keep looking this way because on my screen it's here, but get one of those free apps, and it'll ping you when you're supposed to, you know, when you've missed a chance to read a book, or, you know, get a free language app and learn a language, that kind of thing. So what you're doing here along this whole path is developing personal attributes that admissions committees are going to find prepare you as a strong person of character, and a great physician to be. These, by the way, you should know, this is the AAMC list down here, and the other icons are the ones used by Casper, okay? So all schools now use what we call holistic review. It's looking at your metrics, it's looking at your experiences, and it's looking at what have those experiences taught you, what personal attributes, that's the third thing, what personal attributes have you grown out of these experiences that you've had, okay? So you are not doing shadowing to check it off a list. You're learning and you're growing things like empathy. You're growing things by that shadowing experience, like communication, or watching your physician that you're shadowing collaborate with people. So you're learning all these things firsthand or secondhand in the experiences that you're gaining. So just another plug for it is not a checklist. You get it? I hope. Let's see what's next. So back to the list, back to the personal biography. Now, do you have some ideas about what you can put in that extracurricular section? All kinds of things. How I love to see, I'm teaching myself the guitar. I'm learning Spanish. I got friends together and we got our golf buddy because we all wanted to learn how to do it, and we go play golf every Sunday. Do something new and different and exciting. Learn about others, learn about the world, grow yourself, okay? And if you have a hobby, grow it. Do you like grilling and you do it a lot because you like it? Do you like baking because you like it a lot? So can you take it to another level? Can you log your recipes? Can you go collect? Can you see, like, is grilling done differently in different communities or cultures or nationalities or countries, right? Go take your baking habit and look at other ways to do things. You see what I'm saying? Grow a hobby that you already have. Learn a language, read, teach yourself something, do a personal growth plan. It looks funny to us, and you don't want people chuckling at your application. Here is a time when the number of hours looks a little off, is when a person is logging some hours, whatever it is, in healthcare, community service. Those are the high value areas of this personal biography, right? and then to log those hours, but then say you spend 4,000 hours in the gym. If you're going to put down that you spend 4,000 hours in the gym, everything else better be like supreme. It better be like just a beautiful piece of work, right? You better have $4,000 hours elsewhere in the application, okay? And I understand the gym and exercising or running and those things are very important to people. And sometimes for some, they have changed their lives. Please tell us that. Please tell us that. Nandita, I see a hand.
Hi, thank you. So, I was just wanting to clarify what exactly is meant by collections.
Oh, rocks, fossils. I have the world. I would love to apply now because I love an opportunity to tell people about my best baseball autograph collection in the world. My husband started it because he was in a position to be asking for a few famous baseball autographs, but that's what I mean. Regular, like
Okay, thank you.
old-fashioned rock collection, a button collection. I interviewed somebody who had a like a gift card collection. I guess she used them and then she would save them from all these different stores. And I told her it was when Toys R Us was folding, and I said, okay, you got to go get that one for your collection because it might be valuable later, you know. So that's what a collection is. Thanks for asking, Nandita. So that's that. So it's not what they want you to do. Remember that slide where all that stuff was on there? It's not what they want you to do. It's what are you doing to be the best person that you can be? If you're doing things to make you the best person, and that means you're going to be the best medical student and the best physician that you can be. It's not, that's a checklist. We're crossing off the checklist, and you want to do things that help you have the brain power to do high level, fast paced, deeply complex medical school work. So academics, that metrics part is that part, right? The learn how to be a great student. Do you know what you're getting into? And do you possess the personal attributes that are going to make you a great physician? And I know you all are there and getting there. We can talk about some COVID ideas, but I dropped it in the chat for you. And good. Question time. Question answer. Tell me, what specific things we can talk about? I didn't say too much about other aspects of an application. The Mcat, happy to give you some tips there. There are a couple of videos on our, if you look up Long School of Medicine Club Pre-Med, we've got a channel that I mentioned that, I think. Anyway, there's a wonderful video. We took 5 people who had raised their MCAT in this cycle. They were applicants and now in medical schools shortly, raised their MCAT score by 10 points, and they tell you their tips. And that we can talk about personal statements. We can talk about the Casper, the duet, the snapshot that you all are learning about, the videos. Farha, happy to answer your question.
Hi, I have a question, but I'm not sure if we're supposed to have our camera on or not, but
it's okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure,
Usually we don't have our cameras on, but
no worries.
So my quick question was that you gave us an example of someone named Ahmed, and it seemed like his experience discussed a little bit of his religious background or the role it played going to a nursing home outside of his religious school of thoughts.
Yes.
So my question is that we have been advised sometimes to not speak about certain topics, whether it be social justice, whether it be religion. How do you advise us whether or not we should delve into that? If it's a non-denominational approach, or should we not discuss certain topics at all? I would like to hear from you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I love the question, and I love that you threw in there, because this is a chance for me to clarify for almost the whole world of admissions. Okay, and I'll say most, it's not 100%, but many, I'm gonna give you my opinion, but I'm gonna tell you that a lot of people think this way. Okay, and I'm gonna reassure you that if things like your spiritual background, your religion, where you find meaning of life in life, is important to you, then it will show up in the application, and that is perfectly fine. How many of us had our first community service experience in a church youth group? And that felt really good. You were doing little things that don't seem very meaningful now, I guess, but that launches us into this world of helping others and being centered around others. And if that comes from our faiths, I think that that's fine. A problem rarely arises. I have only seen, in a lifetime of doing admissions and reading thousands and thousands of applications, I've seen it an issue just less than a handful of times. And that is that somebody's faith is so important to them and what they want to do in the future, that they want to bring people to their faith, for example. Okay, so they're going to use medicine to bring people to Christianity or something like that. That's not medical school, right? That's divinity school. I don't mean, that sounds funny, but, and I don't mean it as a joke. If that's what you want to do, then medical school is not the way to do it. It's, you need to go pursue, leadership and learning in a divinity school. I'm glad that you also mentioned social justice, because this has come, some good things were born out of a horrible, tumultuous summer. And one of those is the whole arena of advocating for others, social justice, equity, and those topics. And I'm here to tell you, please tell us about the things you're doing to speak up for people. We know that some applicants feel hesitant to say that they joined a Black Lives Matter movement, that they did a white coat for Black lives, that they're hesitant. Please don't be, because I think that in admissions offices and committees and the people who look at your stories find that extremely valuable. And in fact, we've just written a whole big publication about that, and how we love to hear what you've done. Some of you have done big things. Some of you have done small things. You've spoken up for people and as an advocate, and we find that extremely valuable. I could go on and on, but you get my drift, right? If you want to write about your spiritual beginnings towards medicine, that's fine too. Farha? Yes.
Yes. So I did have a follow-up question to
Sure.
the social justice concerns. So if we do discuss that we are interested in equitable access to care for patients and communities, and we do bring in our personal experience or the clinical experiences that we've had, perhaps working in a diabetic education clinic in an underserved community or under-resourced community, or working regarding just the linguistics of food apartheid in communities, which we currently call food deserts. So when we bring those topics in, what are some things that cannot be asked within our rights as applicants? What are some topics that we don't have to answer just because we're asked, if it does come up in the interviews?
So I started to say this, I don't think I finished it before. I think, so I'm going to try to remember that piece, but I think if you're ever in an interview setting and somebody asks you something that you don't feel comfortable answering, you can say, I'm not comfortable with this topic. And here's the worst that can happen is somebody evaluates you on that piece, which would not be very open-minded, right? And if that's, I don't know if that would represent what what your medical school experience, this is what I started to say. If somebody finds that bad, if somebody doesn't want to hear about that, then maybe you don't want to go there anyway, you know? And
Wow, thank you so much.
right? Right?
Thank you.
So,
Yes, definitely. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just,
no.
that was such an empowering moment to embody in us, like the idea that we're not beggars, we're applicants, we can choose. So thank you
Yes.
so much for
Yes.
validating.
And so, you are, you all are in, I can't think of the right word right now. Not, what's the word? You're at our mercy. We can sort of tell y'all what we want. It's very competitive. It's very stressful. And you do need to be empowered a little bit here and there. And you're going to act respectfully. You don't have to like have attitude, of course, if you would say something like that, but you absolutely can say, I'm not comfortable with that topic. And can we talk about my research? Or, so, put a smile on your face and talk about, throw out that you want to talk about this great community service or this other healthcare experience that you had, something like that. So good.
Thank you.
I'm glad you brought it up. The vast majority of interviewers and schools are going to applaud you for your work as an advocate and working towards social justice and advocacy. So keep it up, because that's how we change the world. That's how we make it better and better. Questions? Do you have questions ready for me, Lana? Or
yes.
Oh, Kayla.
I think Kayla, sorry, I got kicked out of the meeting a couple times, but I'm back in. But yes, I see Kayla has her hand raised, so we can get her question.
Great, please.
Hi, so my question is just, so if we do have academic insufficiencies, so times that we've had missteps in our academic career, what do you feel like is the best way to address it, and where? So I know in the application, some schools will have that you have to address each grade that is below a certain a threshold or something, but what do you feel like in a primary application is the best way to address that?
Yeah, so I think the best way is probably your record. So what we most commonly see is that a person has missteps at the beginning, 3 C's, 3 C's, I don't know how many drops. Anyway, my GPA was horrible at the beginning, horrible, but I learned how to do it and people saw me get better and better. So that's most commonly what we see, especially in that those first semesters of college. So that would be one way to do it. Sometimes a master's program in a science area shows that you've got it. You've learned these things right now. I would also say sometimes people have a non-traditional path. You've been out for a while, so the master's program in science can help show that you can do high-level science. But also, there's a thing in Texas called Texas Fresh Start. And if you're 10 years away from, like, if you were going to start medical school in 2024, you can take all courses that you had from 2014. Now, you can't pick and choose. It has to be all, even if you made some solid grades in there. 10 years prior can be erased. It doesn't help too many people every year, but it helps a few people tremendously if you're getting close to a 10-year mark anyway. Do your good work, keep carrying on, and then you get to wipe all that out. Does that help you? Yeah, good. Yes, Whitney.
If you're a student athlete, how exactly would you highlight that on your profile or your personal statement or anything that you do pretty much?
Yes. So we appreciate that athletes we call them, on our campus, we call them athlete students. And a lot of places realize that, oh my gosh, that there's just a lot there. And there is teamwork, there's organization, there is balancing, lots of commitment. So we understand that athlete students have gained a lot in college from those experiences: leadership, teamwork. Sometimes we see a personal statement that draws those parallels for us, and they parallel those responsibilities and leadership and teamwork that they know is coming up for them in medical school and as a physician. So it's addressed in several places. I do want to say I have, you know, you have to call it out. So, or we don't know, we might not know if you have tennis under extracurricular, for example, we might not know that you were a student athlete or athlete student. So that has come up with, what was it? Cheer or something that you might not recognize as like, that's an athletic accomplishment to be, you know, that's a student athlete. They are student athletes as well. So make sure we know it. Okay. Did that answer your question? Any
Yes, it did.
follow-ups? Okay, good.
And also, when it comes to counting shadowing hours, how exactly are we supposed to do that? I'm kind of like a little bit of a novice when it comes to shadowing, so I wasn't sure how to calculate those hours.
So in your, I think when I give, you know, that blue lined document I showed you, make sure you follow up and get it from me or Lana. And that's going to help you because in the TMDSAS system, I can't speak for Mcat, but it's going to be really similar. We ask for the title of the activity. We ask for the dates, the location, the number of hours per week, and the total hours. And that total hours, I don't think it's calculated for you. You get to put that in. And some people ask if it was here and there and not regularly, you just average things the best. You know, your integrity is at the foundation of this application. We're not double checking things. You're gonna answer things as truthfully as you can figure out. And then you get 250 characters to tell us what value, meaning, lesson learned. That's the best way. So on your Excel or on just a what do I want to say, a continually growing Word document, you're going to have those things to fill in. Lana, you just
Perfect, thank
have
you.
done it. Do you want to?
Yeah, so I was just going to say, I was working on that today, actually. And so under, I think the healthcare section, each title section, I would put shadowing with Dr. Smith. And then I would state, like, of course, where it was, what dates I did it. And then in the description, I would state the specialty and what I learned and saw. And then you were correct, you input the own hours. So however many you did. And like you said, it's all integrity based. So you could put whatever you did. And I put each specific physician as a separate entry on mine personally, just because they were each different specialties. And that was for the Texas one. So, but like Dr. Kellaway said, AMCAS is probably really similar. I just haven't looked at it, so I'm not 100% sure.
And you've got 13 schools in Texas, you know.
Yes, that's a good thing about the Texas application is you just check the ones you want to go and it sends it to all of them.
Yes.
So that's one of the benefits of the Texas application.
Baylor joined us now.
Yes.
I don't know if y'all know that. Yeah, but they're not a separate application anymore. The other thing I wanted to say about this particular topic, since we're talking about the items that you'll list, right, of all that personal biography that I talked about, honors and awards, leadership, research, healthcare, community service, and extracurricular, and work and planned. I want to mention duplication and a couple of other things. Most people are asking you to pick, if it's leadership and service, like the peanut butter sandwich story, that's leadership and service. So pick one. And that's why you're making a shoebox. That's why you're looking, you go, oh gosh, I've got a lot of community service here. I'm going to pull this one out because I did a good amount of leadership. I'm going to put it in the leadership section. So you can look at your well-roundedness, right? But try to pick one area that it goes in. If you have things, and here's the other motto related to all good things are good, is go ahead and collect. I said this already, I think. Collect everything in your shoebox, okay? If it was 2 hours in a doctor's office shadowing, put it in your shoebox. Now, are you going to end up putting those 2 hours in your application? I don't know. You might, but you might also have an experience that's 2 hours here and 4 hours there and 6 hours here, but some long-term things that were 100 hours. So you could take those smaller ones and say miscellaneous shadowing and say, you know, I was in a clinic, or, you know, if there's some way to tie it together, that's fine. But if not, you just put miscellaneous and what you learned from that experience. And here's the other thing. You only get, I think it's 250, right, Lana? Characters? Did you count them?
So today it was 300.
Okay,
but
great.
it is characters, so like spaces count, periods count.
Commas,
So
all
it's
that.
a lot less than you initially think when you're going in there.
Oh, yes. You spend those characters quickly. So one other thing I have to tell you is if you're scribing, please do not. So you're talking to people in medical schools on medical school admissions committees, and a lot of us are doctors anyway. So you don't need to tell us what scribing is. We know. So don't put scribing 100 hours and all that, and then say, I was in the room and I took notes and entered these into the medical record. We know that already. Tell us what you learned. Tell us it was so fun to learn how the doctor was making a differential diagnosis, or tell us how you learned how to guess what labs the doctor was going to order next, or tell us how you learned a patient broke down when the doctor delivered some bad news, and you learned how to, be a doctor, but also be compassionate and kind and caring in a difficult situation. Tell us those things, and then write more about it in the personal statement. But don't spend a lot of those characters telling us what a scribe is, right? Or repeating words. So if you're putting pediatrician up there, you don't need to put it again in the description. Thank you for asking, Whitney.
Dr. Kellaway, before we get to Nandita's question, there was a personal message that I received in the chat.
Yes.
So someone asked about specifically Canadian applicants, and I guess kind of IMGs in general, asking if they're eligible to apply specifically to long school medicine, but if you know kind of generally about other medical schools. So kind of like what different requirements are for international students, and if there are specific requirements they have to meet.
Right. So this is something that you'll have to watch in the future, okay? Traditionally, up until this, like almost to the day time in where we are right now currently, and we still officially have to say that as a state school, we are not, we don't consider citizens of another country, an international student here on a visa of some sort, we do not consider them eligible, I'm sorry to say. But things are changing in all of the Texas schools. I don't know if you all know this, but for subsets of those and dual, a lot of Canadians have dual citizenship. So the dual citizenship is not an issue. And people who are US citizens who went to school in other countries is not an issue, except we don't often see your transcripts calculated correctly. So your GPA comes across as a 0. So we need you to get it like transcribed. But in May, this is where things have changed. Last year, the students, thank you students, the student chapter of the Texas Medical Association presented a resolution to the TMA, Texas Medical Association House of Delegates. And they said, would you please encourage Texas schools to consider Daca recipients as eligible for medical school? So for that subset of our pools, we are all in conversations about how to do this, be able to provide the resources and the guidance and everything that those students might need. A&M has already announced that they are considering Daca recipients as eligible. All of the other school, most of us are following in their footsteps. We are planning meetings and talking about what we all need to do to make it official, so that we are going to be doing that. Pretty sure, but I can't say that officially, so don't tell my boss. Just kidding.
So let's, thank you for staying just a little bit over. We can maybe do just Nandita's question, and then there was one more private question that I had, and then we can go ahead and wrap things up.
Okie doke. I
It's all
don't
right.
have
I've
a hard stop, so
sorry.
I'm happy. I'll stay here as long as y'all will have me. Candida.
Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate you spending all the time with us. I
You're
actually have two
welcome.
questions, if that's all right.
Of course.
Okay, so going off of Whitney's question, would you suggest putting in certain anecdotes in while describing your activities, or only sticking to the lessons you've learned or how you've grown?
Oh, no, I think that's fine. I think it's fine to put an anecdote, especially if we sort of know what that activity is, like shadowing, we sort of know what that is. But I would say that often 300 characters might not be enough to tell the story, and you have several other places where you could put that. So I think an anecdote would be a valuable thing to put there.
Thanks. But so the vibe I'm getting is it might work better in the personal statement because we have a lot more space there.
You have more space. So in the TMDSAS application, you have three, actually more. You have several ways that you can tell us about you and your path. And those are the 300 characters in each item. Okay.
Mhm.
You've also got more space. I think it looks like 500 characters. I don't know. Lana can tell us. It'll say you can expand on 3 areas. So you wouldn't put new things there because you want people to catch it in the personal biography, but you could expand and tell the anecdote under most meaningful. So you've got 3 bigger text sections there. You also have the personal statement, and I would, it's another presentation altogether, but you need to follow the prompt. And the prompt says, why are you motivated to do this? And be sure to tell us stories about your experiences that, fuel your motivation. So you've got that one, that's a required one. You've got an optional essay that says, is there anything else you want to talk to me about here? And that's a lot of people don't do it. It doesn't look bad if you don't do it. It's wonderful if you do that essay, the optional essay. And we see people do all kinds of things. You could do a paragraph. I forget how many characters. Is that 200 and 2,500 maybe? It's big. So you could do several paragraphs and tell about research and about an anecdote, or you can mix up. It doesn't have to be one topic, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. And then the third thing to tell you about is a required essay that asks, learning is enhanced in environments of diversity. So what unique, wonderful things are you bringing to add to the diversity of a student body? So your anecdotes could fit in any of those places.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. So second question is, what advice would you have for prospective BSMD or BSDO program applicants, and how differently are those same, 8 core areas of achievement that we've talked about here? Are they assessed the same way as they are for med school applicants? And if not, what are the differences?
You said BSMD.
Yes, BSMD or BSD.
Or what was the other one?
BSDO.
Oh, okay, yes. So we no longer have a combined degree, undergraduate MD program. And so I have not vast experience. I would say that if you pursue that combination, that you really want to, on the undergrad portion, you want to challenge, this would be advice for anybody anyway, but often we learn a lot every year, we overcome obstacles, we build resilience, and we become stronger students, like we mentioned before too, right? We become better, like hopefully everybody at any stage, we're all getting better and better and better as we go along. So I would say to somebody who might be looking at a shorter track, to make the most of every experience, to challenge yourself academically first, because the very first thing, because you need to be academically strong first. And as accomplished as people are in undergrad, when you step into medical school, it's hard. It's just, you remember the steps from high school, you know, going into high school, that was different. And then high school to college is a big step, big learning curve in your academic life. So it's the same thing. So I would say challenge yourself. And I would say challenge yourself and try to get as many experiences as you can, and so that you can grow in experiences and maturity and how you approach the world, you know, and people in it. We should be able to look at a short path, and we have students who, because of dual credit, et cetera, have shorter time in college, but we're assessing everybody sort of equally, you know. So we're looking for, so you would have good use of your time, making the most of your time to have those experiences and have them look the same as a person who's there for 4 years. And I know that saves a lot of money for people, and finances absolutely are an issue. But I don't know, the 4 years, I think, every year adds a little something. So.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the last question that I received in the private chat before we wrap up quickly was, someone asked, as a high school student, so they're getting a early jump on this. They asked, what advice would you give to high school students who want to go into medicine, and what do you think they should be doing now to help them when they start preparing their applications?
In high school, right? That's the question. I was getting distracted a little bit by the chat. I'm going to put my email in there, as long as you remember that I have 200 now, and you know, I try to get to it as fast as I can, but I'll put my email in there, so people, if you wish, I'm happy to try to continue to answer.
Do you want me to go ahead and type that in for you?
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect. I'll go ahead and send
now
that.
I forgot the question. High school, what should you be doing? You know,
Yeah.
you want to be a physician, so I would make sure as a high school person that you still had an array of other experiences outside of medicine: art, writing, books, reading, literature, law stuff, other things, just to make sure. You should still be experiencing the world in a broad way. And I would say you can do that while you're also exploring medicine with shadowing and some of those things. Do I need to drop that in the chat in case people missed it? These are some ways to find out. Some of these things are perfect for a high school student. My first activity on there is march yourself through, learn about medicine by marching yourself through the organ systems. Pick an organ system, the cardiovascular system. Go look up the anatomy, et cetera, et cetera. One of the last steps is go to YouTube and find a doctor who's doing that exam. I tested this out, and there are some people out there walking you through how you observe and then lay your hands on a person and what you're listening for and that kind of thing. So I think that you can explore medicine that way too. Again, you are trying, did I say this should be first? So I think I forgot to say that for the high school answer is you should be learning how to be a strong student. You know, if you're making A's, take harder courses and make A's. If you're making B's, get your study skills honed, find, you know, talk to professors, do Anki and Quizlet, and do whatever it takes to like make yourself the best student you can be. Yeah, so I think, and there are some summer programs in high school, and those are if you go to it used to be called what? Summer medical. It used to be called Summer Medical Dental, and now it's called SPEP. So it's the Summer like Health Professions Experience Program, something like that. So if you put in a search engine SHPEP, you'll get these summer programs. And this one is run in partnership with Robert Woods Johnson, and you go to a medical school campus for a couple of weeks. It's a great experience. What else? National Youth Leadership Forum. They have those in nursing, medicine, law, a couple of other things. So look up NYLF and they have some good summer programs for people who want to go into medicine. I have to like stop myself from talking because like I could go on and on.
No worries. I know I said that was the last question, but someone just messaged me asking, they had a question for you. So I don't know, Malay, if you want to go ahead and unmute.
Hi, I wanted to ask one final question. So I have already graduated from undergrad and I have a bit of a non-traditional path, but I've just wanted some advice from you as to how to strengthen my application as a whole, because I kind of feel lost at times and it's hard right now not having any sort of mentorship or direction. So
Oh gosh.
what sound advice could you give students that have already graduated and are looking to strengthen their application in any possible way?
Yeah, so join our club pre-med. Go to because we do something monthly, and there's a world of information there right now on the YouTube channel. And so then you'll have, you have these opportunities then for Q&As and discuss various topics. Look at other medical schools and see what they're doing. A lot of it now, the Zoom, one silver lining from the pandemic and everything going virtual was that everything went virtual, and now we know how to communicate with each other. So see what other medical schools might be offering. We do also an open house. It'll be in person, thank goodness. Finally, again, in the fall, we do a fall and a spring open house, so you can keep in contact there through our, how do you get there? So through our club pre-med, the San Antonio, Austin non-traditional group is like one of the largest around, and it's all non-traditional people who are looking for support and answers to questions. So those are a few ways, Malay. And I, myself, and my team and our medical students who do outreach also are happy to help you.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. K. That was really reassuring.
Very welcome.
Thank you
It's
so much.
hard. It's hard. And I was thinking,
Very.
okay, if I was thinking a moment ago and you made me remember, I thought, well, if Lana says, sometimes the last wrap up is, okay, any last words of advice from me? And one thing that is on that sheet, the blue category sheet, the way to organize your shoebox, that I didn't talk about at all today, is that this is hard. And so there's a section on there where you put down things that make you feel good and resources that you can go to when you feel bad, because this is a hard road. This is a little tangent from your question, but that's since we're getting to the end, that's what I would close with, is this section of inspiration. I say faith, family, friends, fortitude. Those are the things that are going to get you through. You're going to have a day that you think, what am I doing? I'll never make it. You're going to have a day. I know that's why I love to do this, is because I know what that feels like. I didn't match in ophthalmology at first, had to do that again. That was a big deal. Anyway, sometimes you just like feel bad. You feel like a failure. You will make a bad grade. You have a hard road. You just don't feel like it's happening. And you need to gather good, positive things around you. Your faith and your family and your friends and your fortitude, some, find strength. I have a little Pinterest board where I've got funny memes and Bible sayings and things that lift me up. So, you need to build that in, everybody, to your system, because it's not easy. It's not easy, and it's long, even if, it's long. So it's a long, hard path. So, but hang in there, hang in. I don't have my thing. I should have my thing out to show you. I had this when I was failing and failing and failing and failing, physics and organic and the Mcat and matching and all that. I had this thing that I just kept. It has tape everywhere. It has coffee stains and it's kind of crumply and crinkled. And I pulled it out of a magazine. Well, first, we don't have magazines anymore, right? So you'll have to go to Pinterest or someplace else. But I tore it out of a magazine. I had it taped on whatever, my file cabinet and my computer. those were big, like a bulletin board. It said, anyway, it was a blue sky and clouds, and it says, things of quality have no fear of time. Things of quality have no fear of time. It was probably a car commercial. I don't even remember what the ad was for. It wasn't inspiration, it was an ad. I don't know what was at the bottom. I just tore out that things of quality have no fear of time because it spoke to me as, and then I find other things later, of course, because it's not my timeline. I feel like my faith personally helps me. So I realize finally it's not my timeline, it's God's timeline for me. So that helps me understand when things are hard. So pull those things together for yourself so that you have those resources to make you feel good right at your fingertips.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kellaway. This was such an amazing session, and I know that everyone here appreciated all of the advice. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. I appreciate it. I know that everyone else appreciates it. And
you're very welcome. I hope I see some of you along the way in the future. Ask questions. Give me a little time, because sometimes my inbox is full. But I really enjoy being